right, so today we have Charles Flanagan here with Lane Digital Media, Fast Lane Films. This is another interview we've been excited about. We'll get straight into it. Charles, tell us a little about yourself and where you're from.
I don't know what name to use, right? I guess we can go Charles J. Flanagan or Professor X or whatever I keep on going by. It's whatever. 40 years old, biohacker, coach, occasional father lately, and just everyday average Joe.
All right. So what in particular do you do?
Lately, bros, whatever. What I've been specializing is biohacking.
And what's biohacking?
That's the question that everybody's asking, Let's take it real easy and talk about the word. Bio is life, and hacking is basically a shortcut. So, everybody lives life and they want to live it to their fullest, right? There's life hacks. And life hack is simply just that, right? It's how you can basically make life better with simple, tricks. Biohacking is the same way. A lot of biohackers, what we want to do is we want to maximize the human body's potential. After I got out of drinking 3 years ago, I kind of went on this whole quest for fitness. And largely it was biohacking that kind of led to it. Biohacking ties in science to the mind and body, and it puts it over in an application that you can use. I'm a little different than the biohackers out there. I think biohacking in the science is almost like CrossFit. It kind of caters to a demographic that usually you don't have. But I wanted to introduce it to the world, right? I wanted people to see their body. I think of my body as like a machine. And what you put into it and what you do for it, you get certain performance. So I want to show people, like, hey, this is what it looks like when you take the machine to its full capability.
All right, and who introduced you to biohacking? Like, did you come across it online or?
Yeah, no, it's funny. There's a few guys that I like a lot. Ben Greenfield is he's at the pinnacle of biohacking right now, and he's one of the main ones. There's Mark Devine, for all intents and purposes, he'd be a biohacker, but he's an ex-Marine, motivational speaker, wellness coach, and that's largely it, and I've always kind of experimented with different things with my body and try to get it there. It's just now taking on a name, it really is.
Okay.
I guess another name is body ninja, right? I'm a body ninja or body build, whatever term you want to use,
And were you big into weightlifting or just working out in general before the biohacking?
Yeah, no, man. I've been weight training and lifting weights for a long time. My dad actually got me into it. I started lifting weights when I was 8. And the reason why is I started playing football, and I needed some more strength.
Okay.
Right? All the place that I grew up in, it was really affluent. So all those kids, they had trainers, they had this, they had that. And I didn't have that, but I did have a lot of skills, so my dad saw that, and he's like, man, we got to get you to level up. So he got me a bench, and he showed me just your basic weights, or your basic lifts, and I started from there on.
Okay.
Yeah, and since then, man, I've just been hooked.
Okay, and I know recently you were doing a podcast. You're continuing with more podcasts, but your 30 Days in the Desert came to like a end, and people are kind of wondering what happened. Could you elaborate, give some insight on what's going on?
Yeah, no, it was more or less the reason or the purpose on doing that is I wanted people to know who I was. I've had a lot of ideas for podcasts. But the thing about them is people aren't going to listen to me. Who are you? If I went in depth and went into this podcast talking about my story, talking about my struggles and all that, it wouldn't make sense because you don't know who I am. So the 30 Days in the Desert was more or less trying to orient people with my struggle, my challenges, whether they be mental health, whether they be biohacking or just different things with the mind and body. But I wanted to, basically introduce everybody. And then the last episode was basically me talking to, one of the people who kind of got me on the path of just, being more mindful in my life right. And that's my kiddo. So, it will go on. I had to take, what people don't understand is how deliberate the podcast was. It was a very hard thing when you're that transparent about your truth. So, for that 30 days, I had to be very deliberate. Every day I set a clock. Every day I did the same routine. I woke up at 4 o'clock. I did 500 push-ups, I did 500 sit-ups, I did 20 minutes worth of meditation, and then that always put me to 4:30. And then at 4:30, I always would start my podcast, And what I was trying to show people in the 30 days in the desert is show people how to establish a pattern. For good or bad, whatever it was, you guys saw me 30 days establish a pattern, right? And you seen, or sorry, not seen, but heard me changing. What I was trying to do is, show that practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes repetition. So you saw a guy who knew nothing about a podcast do it. And 30 days later, I got sponsorship, I have this, I have that. Right, so what was I showing people really? That's how easy it is to not only establish a pattern, but get the things you want from the pattern. And since then, man, it's been really rewarding. It's not about a monetary thing. I think people thought that that's why I was doing it.
Right.
But it was the community that I built. Alan and you and I talked about that. Like, after I did it, I got to be honest, I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to do another podcast. And the last podcast, I cried a lot. I broke down. I got 5 emails. I got a bunch of text messages, and it was kind of mission accomplished. Like, everything that I had talked about, it was happening. There was a community of people, there was a conversation that was happening about something I spoke on, and that was mental health and how it was perceived. Would I look like anybody that suffers from depression? Would I look like anybody who was an alcoholic? You gotta show people what that looks like so we can drive it home.
Right.
That was the biggest purpose for this.
And do you think that helped a lot of people, seeing that you were talking about it publicly?
It's one of those weird things, man. I don't know if it's a one thing, if it helped immediately or if it helped, a bunch of people. I don't know. I can always collectively speak for people. I think it helped, individual persons, I guess, right? What do you think? You and I posted a few in groups and all saw it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think people seeing it from someone that they wouldn't normally see it from or expect it from definitely helps. It definitely starts a conversation. It just opens that door. And somebody else was speaking about that recently, that we need to open the door to mental health and wellness.
Yeah. I saw an interview with Steve Smith, who's like one of the greatest, wide receivers, right? And he was talking about his mental health struggles, about how he suffered from, and, when he would go through these little issues, the coaches were like, get out of your head, Smith, and all these things. And it's not something like that. Think about mental health from the stance of getting a physical injury. If you break a bone, there's protocol, right? You have to do so much to heal it, right? Nobody tells you, just walk it off. But when you have a mental health thing, you have depression, you have manic depression, you have whatever, deal with it, get over it, It's no different than anything else, There's a certain protocol that needs to be followed.
Okay, and fitness helps you get through that a lot. The meditation, is that something that you started recently, or?
No, so that's a big thing for me. And, through relationships, I've been abusive in relationships, I've been an asshole, I've had different anger issues. A lot of it, I'm a very high-functioning, very dynamic person, and when these emotions come out, like, our culture, you know how it is, black culture, bro, we're very emotional, like, but we don't know how to channel that. And what I would always see is, I grew up with primarily white people. When things would happen at a very early age, what do white people do? Go sit in timeout, Johnny. People don't realize that's meditation at its earliest, simplest form. You sit in the corner, you reflect. What is meditation? What am I doing? I'm isolating myself and I'm reflecting. As our culture, bro, we don't learn that. How do we learn? When something happens, we spank. And it is, again, every model fits both, but that's how we learn. So we learn through physical, we learn through emotion.
Right.
It works, man, because, again, there's times that you have to use physical displays to fucking orient people. Excuse my language, you can edit that. But it's not all the time, and I think that you have to at some point, especially these athletes. I don't know if you just saw that, but what's his name? Earl Thomas had exited from the Baltimore Ravens. He hit another player, okay? And now he's talking about, hey, I'm sorry, thank you, everybody. But what do you think would have happened if he would have learned how to orient himself with the emotions he was feeling? Like, instead of reacting to what that guy did, because right now the ramifications of just punching that guy are super far reaching, right?
Right.
What if you learn how to meditate just like I'm doing?
I think that's a problem, especially in our communities. Like, people are quick to resort to bias because that's what they know from growing up.
Yeah.
If we knew to sit down and think about it, it'll be less people in trouble and just less crime in general.
Bro, you're so right. You're so right. And that's how I looked at it. I looked at, hey, what if I can do something? What if I can show a system of living in your life to the top and the maximum of your capability, but without hurting anybody, without any pain, and all the joy in the world. So that's kind of what I'm trying to come up with. I don't know if anybody will aspire to it, if anybody will fucking read it, but nobody else is doing it.
Right.
With the quarantine and with everything, we had a lot of time.
All right. And are you the only person that you noticed about race in the biohacking community, or?
I don't see anybody in our space doing it. I really don't. You know, it's funny, and I've even done it so far, and I've already got some resistance. Like, I'm doing what's called cold immersion therapy, right? And what it's supposed to do is, when your body goes beneath a certain temperature, it yields a certain return. You know, not only it heals your body, but you get neurologically, you get synergistic effects from all the hormones that get released. So, long and short of it, the argument was that this way that I'm doing it doesn't work. But what I showed the community is I said, hey, look, you know, everything you're saying, it yields the same returns. Their argument fell invalid. They were challenging me not because of what I was doing, they were challenging me because of who is doing it. And it's fine, I'm open to that, but you guys are going to have to come with something better. Like, for real, like, you guys are going to have to come with something better. You know, like, I get all your degrees and the verbiage, but it's going to have to be better than that. Like, I've done a lot of research. And the thing about the biohacking in the community is I hear the science, I do, but nobody's ever applied the science to anybody black. You know, so all the stuff I'm doing every single day, look at me. You know, the fasting and all that.
Do you feel like you get more effects from the cryotherapy versus some other people?
Yeah, so the argument was does cryo versus cold water or tub, cold water immersion. Their argument is you have to be cold water immersive. The problem is if you get into a cold water tub, okay, ice cold water tub, it has to go to 45 degrees. That's where the yield, or that's where the return is. Do you know how long you have to sit in that cold water at 45 degrees?
What, like 10 minutes?
10 minutes. So do you know what the problem is? Is that if your body is in cold water for more than 4 minutes, it damages tissue. Cryotherapy is negative 176, so you get the 3-minute yield, but it doesn't get temperature damage. Why? Because it's going slightly beneath the surface, not penetrating the tissue. So you're still eliciting the same effects. You know, you're doing it for less time, and the thing about it is, for all, you know, practical purposes, a cold water tub, who can afford that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Who can do that? We live in Arizona, man. Like, so grabbing ice and picking it up and taking it to my house, like, who can do that? So, and also too, the amount you have to breathe to temper yourself and temper your, you know, it's hard, you know, so it's a very good therapy. It's awesome. It's more meditative because it requires a whole lot more. So, like, if you really want to take it to that next level, you've gone to your cold showers, you've done your cryo, like, when you want to level up, you need to go dunk. You need to go dunk tank, you need to be in full cold water. Ideally, where I'm taking this with, you know, I want to go, you know, super biohacking deep, and I want to go to the Himalayas, butt-ass naked, and do that, like Wim Hof. You know, people research who Wim Hof is. You know, when you're in cooler temperatures, to even keep your body before you go into shock, the breathing you'd have to do. This guy has world records of being in sub-zero temperatures for hours. This guy hiked Kilimanjaro with nothing but shorts on. Most people don't even survive that. So how was he able to temper himself at a higher elevation and still keep his body, like, his body temperature there? He's the only person that we have right now that's a superhero. There's nobody that can do what this guy does. Is this guy big? Is he? He's just a normal person, but he's pushing himself deeper. That's biohacking. You look at, you know, a guy like Kobe Bryant, what he did. You know, the science behind his basketball. That's biohacking. There's everybody out there that are just going through. This guy figured out how to level up. He really went to the science of what he did. You know, so Wim Hof is at the pinnacle of what it is, and there's nobody black in all of his summits. Like, you know, one of the other things that got me into the cold therapy is whenever you do cold therapy, it rewires you. It's something that's counterintuitive to us all. Nobody wants to be cold. How many black people get in the cold?
Not a lot, if any.
If any. So whenever you do that, you wire yourself differently. There's more science into that, and I don't want to go into that. That talks about gray fat or brown fat. Whenever you're in cooler weather, brown fat is what helps your body thermoregulate. You know, that helps you sustain yourself in cooler temperatures. What happens is when you're a baby, it's at its highest, and then as you get older, it kind of gets retarded because you don't put yourself in those variables to build it. Cold water therapy is the only thing that builds brown fat. So.
And I know we talked about fasting before, like on the way to one of the shoots. You want to give people some insight on that and how does it work? Fasting in.
So, yeah, no, for me, let's talk about fasting during the quarantine. So if you want to think about diseases and everything, think about everything you touch has a touch point. It comes into contact with something, right? You have, all your foods have things, pesticides sprayed on them, right? They have everything to try to stave them from, the pollutants that are going to get onto them, right? But the minute you put it into your body, you really can't control that. You're still going to get some feedback. We only know one way to kill something, right? That kills it completely, which is to starve it, right?
Right.
So there's no way I can completely stave off anything that can come into me versus not eating anything altogether. For me, largely, it was a way to minimize everything that was coming in. I can wash my hands a bunch of times, I can do this, but I couldn't readily control that. So that was initially with fasting during the quarantine. But with fasting long term, for me, I've always had digestive issues. I've come from a method of eating 6 times a day, multiple times, and it's never been something that my body's been it's really worked well for. So when you think of
What did that do to your body though when you were eating multiple times a day?
yeah, so
What did you feel?
Bloat, a lot of bloat, and just it's hard to process. When you think of digestion, right? Again, we use that analogy as your body being a machine. Digestion itself is a very, very big process. What your body's doing is breaking down, it's sorting, it's stowing things. So you want to ask your body to do that multiple times. Humans are the only organism in society that does that. No other animal eats multiple times a day to do it. Even, you say you're a normal house cat. You take that same cat into the wild, it doesn't eat to satiate. It only eats to survive. Humans are the only ones that do that. So we liken a lot of our responses to primates. Gorillas don't do that. If we want to really liken to that, gorillas, for all intents, would eat once a day. They would be the closest thing to our descendants, right? But they eat once. And for the most part, they would do what you would call an atypical fast. So when you talk about that, I'm only eating once, I'm asking my body to take that whole big process and to do it one time, not multiple times, once. So when I do that, what do you think my body is in the process? What it's doing? It's resting, it's recovering. I'm drinking water, nootropics, everything to orient my body for this process. So when it finally happens, it's able to do it functionally and adequately. When you have a lot of these major issues, do you know one of the first things that doctors do? They put you on a cleanse, right? They'll evacuate everything that's in your system, and they'll make you fast. When you go to surgery, what do they make you do?
Not eat.
Yeah. Everybody, the stigma is that it's to make sure that they put in there, and that, no. It's not obstruction, it's to make sure that everything that was in you was killed. Talk to your doctor, ask him. Everybody right now, there's different variations of fast. Everybody thinks it's an aesthetic thing. What people don't realize is, again, with my issue of being depressive, I can't get the same kind of effects on a full stomach. I can't get the chemicals released on a full stomach. I have to do it in a fasted state, right? And I have to do cardio. So for me, everybody thinks it's an aesthetic thing. It's not. It's because of my condition. So yeah, no. Everything I'm doing is a byproduct of this.
Nice.
Yeah.
You want to talk about keto a little bit and how that ties into fasting? And have you ever done it?
Yeah, so the thing about it is there's 2 ways you're trying to get your body and to debunk the science, like you're trying to get it out of burning calories and into burning fat, right? So your normal diet or normal thing like that, or normal people, their body burns calories, right? You go into ketosis, that puts your body in a fat burning zone, but there's 2 ways you can do it. You can be on a very strict regimented diet, which usually takes a doctor to keep in that catabolic state, or you can go into fasting. And elongated fasting puts yourself in that same state without the severity of the diet. People, there's a stigma that you have to go longer and all this. There's different ways to fast. I'm just doing my way. But that would be the biggest way to yield the returns instantly and not to hurt yourself. Most people, unless they're under the guidance of a doctor, are going to do a keto fast their own way, and they're going to hurt themselves because you're using a lot of fats and a lot of iron and protein to drive. What are you trying to do? You're trying to burn fat. So how do you do that? You do that with fat and protein. And people are like, great, so I get to have donut? No, wrong. You know, and then the other thing about it is they check their blood levels. When they realize you're in a catabolic state, then they stave all the crap. People don't realize that. When people are diabetics and all that, they have doctors who are checking their levels to understand where they're at. Not like, you know, your buddy who's at home eating the triple donut sandwich. It's like, yeah, bro, I'm in keto. No, you're not. You know, so no, it's a very applied science, and the only way I ever encourage people to do it safely is if they're going to fast. When people I know are fasting, if they're on a fasting plan, they don't do keto too. Usually I have people flexible diet or do whatever works for them with a fast. If they truly fast the right way, they'll just stay on a clean diet. I don't have them try to go keto.
And when you say that, do you mean intermittent fasting or?
Yeah, intermittent, yeah.
Okay, have you ever done like days of fasting?
Yeah, so that I like too. And we're like one of the only cultures that doesn't, you know, and different religious disciplines, they do it for the method of control. It's more or less a spiritual thing. The human body, do you know how long the human body can survive without food?
I believe close to 6 days or something like
31.
that.
31.
And water is a totally different.
Yeah. Air, you got, you know, you don't even have an hour, but, you know, food, you know, you can get through 31 days, you know. And it's crazy when you think about that. You know, so the body adjusts itself and it orients itself. So I have only, I think my longest fast was 2 days. 2 days.
What made you do that 2-day fast? Because I personally did it like 3 days. It was in conjunction with keto and intermittent fasting. But like I was working at that point. I had to be outside and moving all day. So I couldn't see myself doing it any longer. So I had to break the fast. But what encouraged you to do it?
My thing was that, you know, I looked at, there was a, what movie was it? There was a movie I was watching, this guy was trying to get clarity. And the reason why he was fasting had nothing to do with the exact fast, had to do with the meditation. So he was trying to get answers, and he wasn't going to eat, he wasn't going to sleep until he got them. I was like, that's kind of dope. You know, can you imagine that type of focus that you dedicate to trying to get answers? So I'm like, listen, what if I didn't obstruct anything I was doing? What if I just literally put all my focus into my fast? And that was kind of what it was. For 2 days I wanted to do that. But I'll dump in and out of it. And one of my buddies now, he's doing intermittent fasting, and you know, he'll go longer just because. He'll go longer just because, like, you feel awesome. People don't realize that when you're in school or whatever, we all get into this process of a way that we think that we have to eat, right? You know, you do. But you know, when you get outside that, perfect example, when you're in school, you eat lunch, breakfast, whatever, dinner, right? What happens when school's out? You might eat lunch, maybe you'll eat breakfast, maybe you only eat dinner, but you're not bound tied to that, because now you're not even thinking about the process, you're just working on life. When you get into a certain pattern, you know, that's the pattern you get wrapped up into. But I tell people, you can take your own patterns. You know, like I eat once because that's what I want to do, and trust me, if I eat multiple times, I feel that. But I want to orient myself. I remember when I was in the car business, I was as a finance director, bro, like, I couldn't function unless I ate when I need to eat. And it's because my body had been patterned for year after year of that.
Where do you think this 3 meals a day thing came from?
You got to understand, a lot of what we do is driven off of the industries that drive this.
Yeah, they want to make money.
It's a money-driving machine. I remember, I'm 40 years now, I remember when sugar was bad. Like, no, sugar's always been bad. Now it's just, yeah, I remember when it was carbs are bad, now carbs are good. Fats are bad, now fats are good. Too much protein was bad. Too much protein was good. I've seen every single diet fad you can think of. I've seen them all come in waves. This one with keto and having fats and all that, that was nothing. Before that, there was Atkins, and Atkins was only protein, no carbs, nothing. Is that pretty accurate, DJ?
Sorry?
Atkins, it was pretty hardcore.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So, you know, you've had all these, and I laugh at them. You know, I laugh at them because they are exactly that. They're fads. They come and go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what all doctors and what all these, you know, healthcare professionals will do after what works for you. That's what all of it, at the end of it, you know, no fitness guru, if they're worth their weight in salts, they'll all say, you know, you gotta find what works for you. Like at the end, to be successful at this, you have to find what works for you.
Right.
You know?
Right. And just real quick, I know you say that you've been around for a while, and you seen how the pyramid changed, how they had facts bad, cars bad. Did you notice how the supermarkets changed, where the market became a supermarket?
Yeah, no, man, that's crazy. So, like, when I first started in this game, and this is the other thing that I like, so information becomes misinformation. Like, there was no supplements, there was no proteins, there was nothing, right? So, like, you really didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's everything. But the problem is that now I think people, they're misoriented. Like, so I have a lot of people who are straight up vegan. And I look at them like, how are you fat and vegan? Well, now what they're doing is they're substituting. It's the truth. How are you fat and vegan? Bruh. Because now they're substituting everything. Now their foods have all these fillers.
Yeah.
The Impossible Burger. Oh, I'm going to have the Impossible Burger. Stop eating meat. Okay, great. Let me ask you
I think
this.
people need to know about soy.
But even soy, but the Impossible Burger has 40 ingredients. Do you know how much ingredients is in a regular hamburger?
Not that many.
One. Like, it freaks me out. Like,
salt and pepper,
yeah,
beef.
So you're going to, how are you going to sell me on that fact? How are you going to sell me on that, you know? So, yeah, it's a scary thing, and a lot of people, they have anemia, and they'll have different maladies, you know, attributed to, you know, going straight without meat. I'm like, okay, you know, but you need to supplement, you know, your ass off if you're going to do that.
Yeah, and let's talk about supplements. I think that's something people need to be aware of because, like you said, they're eating certain things and they're not getting a lot of nutrients from their diet. Even like the most fit people, they know to supplement, or they know you have to eat this amount to get your macros in and whatnot. So, just talk about supplementation and what people need to know about that.
You know, it is, you know, you got to use the word. It's a supplement. So it's a supplement to what you do. You have to eat food. You have to eat real food. You know, for what I tell people is I try not to have any supplements, right? I try to get everything through the food that I eat.
Roland?
So yeah, no, a supplement should basically be that. It should be a supplement to what you have. So for the most part, I try to get my nutrients, everything through my food. And if I do supplement with anything, it's from what I'm deficient of. So, you know, right now, the only thing that I really do every day is lots of omega acids, lots of the fish oils, vitamin B, and I've been taking this nootropic from BioHacker. It's got a lot of things that minimize the effects of brain fade and help for cognition. All a nootropic is like an energy drink, or it's a brain function thing. It's to enhance clarity and cognition. So for me, I don't take your average pre-workout. I don't want something that's going to, you know, make my body feel fuzzy or make me feel alert. I want to take something that's actually going to yield effect. So everything you do, it happens with your mind, and then you know, it trickles down to your body. So I take Mind, you know, from Qualia as it's a nootropic. So it gives me super clear focus, and it basically allows me to do you know, what you see now. I mean, I took one of those before, you know, you and I started, and it makes me dial everything in. I call it my limitless drug, you know. So right now, bodybuilding.com is voting on it. It's been nominated for #1 breakthrough supplement of the year. I think that was what it was.
Yeah, you want to get some more insight on nootropics and what exactly they do?
Yeah, no, there's the one that was really big in the circuit, in whether it be professional cycling and even track, was modafinil.
Modafinil.
Modafinil, yeah, and it's a neurotropic, or Adderall would be almost like what we'd call a neurotropic, but something that's going to heighten focus. So what this one is, it's an all-natural nootropic, because what I'm about, being a biohacker, I need to have focus. I read a lot, I do a lot of studying, and I need my brain to be operating at its highest. So, you know, for me, it's not about any filler crap, man. It's not about, you know, things that are going to make me jittery or feel fuzzy. I mean, everything about that I do is on, you know, full, you know.
Okay. Now I noticed that you were training like athletes, people that's into football and basketball, possibly. You want to tell us about the training that you do for them, and are you introducing them to biohacking as well?
Oh yeah, no. My passion is athletes, man. I was an athlete myself, and I start with youth, and I think a lot of that is because as a youth athlete, I had some really dope coaches, and I think that would have been the biggest crossover to what people see now. Like, my high school coach was, he holds the Arizona State record for the 100-meter dash. Like, he was, you know, 2-time Olympian. You know, my other coach was a NCAA All-American. Like, I had these dope guys that I was around at a very early age. And so and what they look like, they look very much like me. Good-looking guys in shape, but I identify with that. And largely, I think a lot of athletes identify with somebody who's been in things and done the things they want to do. It's really hard, if you're this football player, to identify with that fat math teacher that really never did anything. It's like, bro, what are you talking about, So with me, largely, I think that's kind of what it is. I don't know if I'm really teaching these guys anything anything that they're not learning. I think it's a lot of identity. My boy Chase talked about it. There's a decade of distinction. Think about that. Like, so there's usually a 10-year, window with, in which you can distinguish something. So, for us, like right now, even this podcast game, I look at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's 50 years old, right? So in this, the next person who's going to look at me, or the next people who look at me, are going to probably be 30, and so on. There's usually a decade of distinction. So like, that's kind of how I work with the coaches and the kids. The kids get me because I'm closer to them than the people they usually identify with.
Do you think what you're doing with them and them knowing that you do biohacking, and if they possibly get into it, might give them an advantage?
Yeah, I like that you asked that. And with me, the reason why I wanted to start this off early is because a lot of the kids I'm getting right now are at the pinnacle of their physical ability. I don't want this to be a moment. I don't want this to be a magic moment, where they're in high school and they're at the peak of it, and then it just to stave off. Like, I want them to do things that I'm teaching them, things that will help them as a lifestyle. With a lot of things that I'm doing with my guys, I teach them meditation. I teach them everything I do because for me, it's a mental game. I'm not trying to, help these guys just get a scholarship. I'm trying to help these guys, battle this thing that we're in. I think life is a war. I think it's a battle. And I think that the better equipped you are to deal with it, the better chances you have at being really successful.
Nice. So just to get off subject a little bit,
Nah, bro, you ain't get that.
COVID, how do you think that's affecting people? Definitely as far as their lifestyle, their mental health, physical health. How do you think that's affecting people worldwide, not even just here?
Well, collectively, I think the consciousness kind of hurt, man, because COVID is a very crazy thing, and it makes people uncertain. When you are uncertain, you get stressed. When you're stressed, you can't fight. When you fight, you die. You can't fight. It's a weird thing because we're in very uncertain times, and I think it's the first time when we really don't know. And it's not just one place. When we've seen crisis in other countries, we can, depending on where you're at, you can look at that and you can feel sorry. You can see grieving because that's happening over there. But this is the first time in history where it's happening to everybody, everywhere. So a lot of the things that I've been teaching my kids to do is like, here's the reality. A lot of these things no one has control over. I gotta be honest, I've probably been more relaxed during this quarantine and everything than most people have been, because I've been confined, bro. I've been, in a box and having to deal, And when you have to deal like that, when you're put in a fucking box, you realize that things aren't as bad as you think,
Right.
So,
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
How you think the world will recover from it, or what would change after people come up out of this once things start to get back to normal? Even though I don't think there'll be a normal like last time, like before it, but there'll be some type of normal.
I don't know. I don't want there to be a normal, right? If what we were living in was normal, right?
Yeah,
I want there to be, a lot of the disconnect was because we didn't deal with a lot of the issues, right? And I think that now they're starting to come up. I think that everything that's happening is exactly what needs to happen. The challenge that people are having, the reason why there's so much suffering going on is because people don't want to let go. That what's dying is what needs to be dead. The way of thinking that, whatever it is that needs to die. So corona larger thing, and people, please broaden your scope, but things are going to be lost that need to be lost. Life happens. You have life and you have death. It's inevitable.
Yeah, things need to be destroyed before you can build something better. So that's what's happening. I noticed the change myself. So yeah. I agree with you 100%.
Bro, you're from Chicago. You know how rough it can be. You've seen life. You've seen death.
Yep. So in your journey with fitness and biohacking, have you ever smoked or drank or?
Yeah, I was an alcoholic for a long time, and then before that was pills. And now smoking, cannabis is my thing. And It was the only thing that I wish I could have done early on. When I was an athlete, I didn't want to do anything. When I was an athlete, like my kids are, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. I thought that, you cannot defile your temple. Because that's what I was taught. I was taught that, like, you're a burnout, you're a stoner if you smoke weed, and it would do all this. That's what I was taught. So I tried to stay away. Then I would hear about the athletes, or I knew other athletes that were doing it. I'm like, man, how are you guys getting high and competing? And I thought they were burnouts. I never understood it. Never understood it. But then moving forward, there's all the issues that I've had. There's the prescription drugs I've had. There's things that I was told was the right thing to do, and I did, and I got messed up.
Did you take those to deal with depression and then everything that was going on mentally as well?
Yeah. The one thing that I never got taught when I was going through all my issues was how to meditate.
Right.
That maybe you need to sit with it. Maybe, you need to sit with it and kind of it will happen, The biggest thing that when bad things happen, what people want to do?
What's that?
You want to take them away.
Yeah, quick escape.
Yeah. One of the best interviews that I saw was Oprah's interview talking about her rape, when she was raped. And she talked about a lot of things, but without it, she wouldn't be where she's at. I've had a lot of horrible things happen to me, but they're all necessitative to where I'm at today.
Yeah, it builds you. Yeah.
It's hard to look at that, man. It's hard to look at, that, the good and the bad are all part of where you're the here and now.
Yeah, that's what I always try to remember too. And I think a lot of people need to know that because they hear it, but it doesn't really hit them. And they don't want to deal with that bad. Like a lot of people don't want to go through the bad to get to something good, but you have to.
I think that's the biggest thing, though. It's like when you're going through bad, like I look at you and you're dope. I'm like, how do you keep going through bad knowing that there's good at the end? Like our people are, my grandmother's super religious. I remember we'd go through singing, "Oh, you just gotta pray, baby." I'm like, how are you doing that? And I admire people.
All right, so with the podcast, do you have any new podcasts coming up, or?
I actually have 4 ideas. So I have the 30 Days in the Desert is actually kind of grown. It's evolved. I will have other people that will be on that. And essentially we'll talk about their 30 days, like what that looked like. There's people, a buddy of mine is a motivational speaker, but a little while back, he was a heroin addict. And now he's one of the most prominent motivational speakers there is. I have my buddy, or actually like my mentor who I talk to every day. Dude he was an ex-Marine, Guinness Book World Record holder's father. He's a book writer, all these things. His story's dope. At one point he shattered his femur. Was not supposed to walk without, braces. And he did that. He put himself back together, so again, I want to, the next where that goes is it orients you on these guys' 30 days and their struggle. I have another podcast for my guys, for my kids. It kind of covers this alter ego. I can't even access the ones I have now because this dude has kind of been messing with my stuff. But I got this other podcast. It's like 5 minutes. It's like super fire, but this guy's kind of a dick in it. So that one I'm releasing. I got another podcast that I'll do, which will be only fitness and orientation, where all I do is ask or answer fitness things.
Will all of them be going on at once, or will you just plot them out?
Really good question. I was going to do a little polling. I think 2 of them will come fairly quick. I think the one where I talk about everybody, the 30s in the Valley, that will be what you call, in fact, when I did my podcast, it wasn't even a podcast. Like one of the social media Nazis, whatever, checked me and was like, "Oh, you know that when you're doing it by yourself, it's a solo cast."
I never even heard of that.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, sorry, sorry." So yeah, when it's 2 people, it's a podcast. When you're by yourself, it's a solo cast. So I solo cast. Yeah, the podcast will probably be 2 weeks from now, but it'll have to be a little different because it's going to take people getting on it. You will in fact be on it because I love your story when we talked about that coming out of the shy and everything.
Nice.
But I'm probably more excited about the 30 days with everybody else than I was even. My podcast was horrible. Like I fought it, but I had to get it out there because I don't think anybody, even my friends, wouldn't have done my podcast until they saw. Like, oh man, this is actually credible. I might mess with this. Nobody wants to mess with you until they see that you're actually doing it. So I had to establish myself. I had to prove myself first. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the next podcast. I got a fitness I actually love this kid. He's from Australia. He's a great fitness influencer, but he's got 170,000 followers. You know, he's always wanted to be a fitness guy, and he's one of the biggest fitness, trainers in Australia. You know, I'm excited about him. You know, so I got that. My buddy who was, one of the first models or first photographers that worked on America's Next Top Model, shot Tyra. Him and I also had another project coming up. He's doing it with me. I mean, so many fun people, man. So, you know, again, I don't even think that people are kind of want to hear me talk after these guys come on.
So are the podcasts your main focus, or you want to build a business around biohacking or training people?
I think I just want to love life, bro. I think that's what it is. When you and I first started talking, it was like, what do you want to build a business around? And I remember there's a question there's a question or quote. I think it was Confucius. When you're passionate about what you're doing, it's not like you're working at all. And when I'm training people, when I'm orienting people about health, and I'm whatever, I'm really happy. And the other thing I realize is I got to do it all. So I want to continue coaching, yes, and I want that to be more of a business. And the podcast and the biohacking, yes, I'm coming out with an ebook. That still, I'm almost done with that. Believe it or not, mini ebook. What the hell am I thinking? But that's coming out. I'm excited about that, and that should also help kind of with monetizing this whole biohacking and fitness thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything else you want to let the viewers know?
No, just to follow me on any of the social platforms. Be supportive. Realize that mental dis-ease, not disease, dis-ease is real. And just be dope.
Nice. All right, so we'll have more interviews coming with Charles Flanagan. You guys stay in tune. Follow his social media. The links will be posted at the bottom of this video. Thank you again for coming. Lane Digital Media, Fast Lane Films. It's a wrap.